I ordered way too much leather. Hello! Welcome back to my channel. My name is Mildly Gothic. If you're new here, what I like to do is a variety of artsy stuff, usually with a bit of a dark twist. However, today, again, it's not quite so dark. This is going to be part 2 of my Mandalorian Armorer Cosplay. I am going to be making her skirt. This was the other big thing that I wanted to tackle. As far as fabrication pieces, the helmet and the chest plate, I am going to be 3D printing and having a friend help me with that. I don't own a 3D printer, so we'll get to videos on that whole process. But today I'm making the skirt. So while I was digging around and I had a general idea of how I wanted, or how I thought I would go about constructing this, I actually came across a pattern on Etsy. I think it was only about $10 or $15. The pattern will definitely be linked in the description down below, so you can check it out if you want, along with what we will get to, which is a short summary of the changes that I made to this pattern that made it work better for me. There were some weird things with this pattern. The instructions were a little unclear at parts, or I'm just dumb. Honestly, both are a possibility, very much so. But I mean, it was a really straightforward process. I had a lot of fun doing it. The motto of today's video is measure twice, sew once. I'm stubborn and didn't do that, and so I caused myself some unnecessary headache. And also, they literally list the amount of material that you need, and yet I ordered like way too much, except I can kind of justify it. I was worried about having to cut duplicates. I was also worried I'm going to be getting to the boots later, and so I need leather for that. But whole lot of things. Ended up spending a lot of money on this project and probably could have cut that cost down in half, but at least I've now got extras and more room to work with when I get to the boot covers. But this is kind of the quick process of how I put this pattern together, the problems I encountered, and what I changed about the pattern. So if you're interested in that kind of content, seeing how this cosplay develops, and anything else kind of artsy, crafty, and whimsical, I guess I'll say, then definitely subscribe, like this video, maybe leave a comment saying how nuts I am sometimes, I don't know. Anyways, without further ado, thank you so much for watching if you've already made it to this point, and let's get to the project.
So first things first is to cut out your pattern pieces. I had 2 different leathers, the main leather for the pleats of the skirt and then the accent leather for the back. This did take me a good bit of time, as pinning leather, especially if you're trying to do a fold, is very hard because it is no longer flat in creases. So I did most of this by tracing it with a pencil and then pinning the leather together before I cut it out to make sure it was even, rather than pinning it together in order to trace the pattern out.
I'm just trying to lay out my leather on the ground so I can cut pattern pieces, but somebody seems to have other plans. Sweetheart, I need to get this flat. This is not helpful. This is not. Hi. No, Domino. I love you so much. Anyways, this is part of why it's taking forever. You are so precious. Hi, weirdo. Hi.
This project, not unlike most sewing projects, is very prep work heavy, and the first part of that was folding a 1/2 inch hem and then seaming that a 1/4 inch away from the edge. That had to be done for each pleat 8 times, and I did measure this to try to get it super precise because I didn't want the end pleats to have a very noticeable difference and to be like different sizes or something. Time and patience is key to get a beautiful, consistent result.
Well, I've never had this happen before. I managed to pull the head off of one of my pins. I don't think I'll have a problem getting it out, but this project is continuing to prove wonderfully interesting.
So again, like most things, I jumped all over the place. There were instructions in a specific order, and I just kind of like did not follow them, and I did what I thought would make the most sense. So the next part was hemming the edges of the tabard, and anytime I mention a specific measurement of a seam allowance, there are typically lines on the base of the sewing machine, and you can use just lining it up with the edge of the presser foot as far as keeping your measurements consistent. You always want to look at where your fabric is lined up in regards to that seam allowance or edge of the presser foot, and you don't actually want to look at the needle. The needle is going in the same place, but the edge of your fabric may waver. So next was the detail on the tabard, and I screwed up. I did not keep my pins and detail in place the first time, so I did have to sew one of the lines twice, which does mean there are holes in the leather, but it's all right. And then I went in with a seam ripper, but just using the pointy end to kind of try to coax out all of the little bits of thread that were left attached to the leather after I had seam ripped it out and restitched it back on.
So just like for the vertical detail, I outlined the edges of where it should go based on the detail provided by the pattern. And this part of the middle section is going to be covered, so I'm going to cut it so that it hides it at about that point.
Next step is marking all of the pleat lines and basting a row of guide stitches just so I can see where that is. Basting is just running very large stitches through it. It can be used to tack things together or mark things in a way that's going to stick around a little bit better than a line of pencil. I did come up with a better way to do it after the first one. I just basically rolled the pattern back and traced the lines across with pencil first and then went back over all of those lines with a row of basting stitches. Then it came time to sew these on. What you didn't see was the prep. I measured 5/8 of an inch from the top of each pleat and lined that up with where the baste stitch is because that was to be my seam for sewing these pleats on. The pattern has you start at the first pleat and go down to the 8th. I did the first pleat, looked at it, and then realized why on earth would I do that, and then started from the 8th pleat and worked up. That meant there was no weird flipping up of the leather. I was able to just do them sequentially on top of each other. There was no leather overlap, so there was no risk of sewing through multiple layers, just what I needed, and it ended up working out really well. And honestly, even sewing the second one underneath the first one wasn't that bad, so it probably would have been doable the way the pattern indicated. However, I chose to do it in reverse order. Something I do not show is after all of these pleats were sewn in, I did attempt to remove the basting stitches to the best of my ability. Sometimes I had sewn directly through the thread, and so it was impossible to remove, but I did remove them because I didn't want all of those dangly ends hanging off the sides. So now we go through another big jump of things happened, and they were not filmed because I was very frustrated. This red detail I had to cut out, I believe, only twice. But I changed the pattern here as well because I did not like that the edges of the pleats were going to be exposed on the edge of the skirt. So I added an inch to the, I guess, outside of this detail all the way around so that I could fold that extra under. So when you look at the side of my skirt, you do not see the edges of the pleats. You only see the folded over red leather. I thought this worked really well for me. It does result in a little bit of a weird visual thing where the outside seam sits in a little bit further than that inside one. You'll probably see what I mean. However, I just did this to ensure that I could capture all of the edges of the pleats and the fabric underneath on that outside seam. It was literally as simple as taking a ruler and adding an inch all the way around. This was a little finicky, but overall I think it ended up making the edge of the skirt really, really nice. The last thing for the tabard was turning a small hem at the top so it had a nice and finished waist-facing edge. So this was the biggest part of the pattern that I wasn't sure about, and I saved it to the end for that very reason. And I'm probably going to seam rip it out for her actual cosplay because this pattern was supposed to be inspired by her costume, not necessarily to replicate her costume. So the waistband gives it a very nice finished look if I was going for just a nice leather apron, but I am not. I am trying to imitate her costume, and therefore this is just an extra pleat. But to sew it in, wrong sides together all the way across, and then you fold and you're supposed to press it. I didn't. I just seamed the edges of the skirt to give it a nice finished look, and it pretty much holds itself in place. The final detail is some Velcro. The pokey side of the Velcro got stitched to the tabard, about 2 to 3 inches on either side of the top of the tabard, and then the soft side of the Velcro got stitched to the underside, I guess inside of the waistband on either side. And that's all it took to finish off the skirt. I keep calling it a skirt. It's an apron, and I apologize for that. But no, it is technically an apron, no matter how many times I keep calling it a skirt.
So here's the final product. I apologize for the not getting everything in frame, but just a little bit of a recap. So here's that weird visual thing I was talking about. This is the detailing on the edge, so this is the vertical piece. But you can see
So this is the edge that folded under, and I just think that's a really nice clean look. All of the pleats are stitched and secured in place, and I did this one closer to the edge. Could I have moved this one in further? Yes, but I was afraid of then running into issues with this part up here, and I wanted to keep these about the same size, and I just thought that was going to get a little bit visually weird. So that's why I chose to make that decision. Here, this is how I finished the waistband, just seamed it down right there. This one has a bit of a fat edge because I sewed this one way too far out, and so it didn't match up with the waistband, so I just manually hand stitched that back to try to make look a little bit more even. I don't think it's too noticeable, and again, I think it's okay. So the waistband does give it a very nice finished look. As you can see, all of my pleats are beautiful and even. I think I found a stunning leather for this project, but I do think I'm going to seam rip the waistband off if I continue with this cosplay when I put her belt on, because if you look at it, she only has these pleats, not this one. So the tabard is pretty straightforward. You can see pretty clearly right here, and then right there in this as well where I screwed up the first time. I also technically screwed up over here, but that wasn't me. I did not pay attention to my bobbin ran out, so I was just stabbing my leather instead of actually sewing it, which is not ideal. But I do think I ended up getting it really nice and straight and even. You could probably modify this to cup around the edge if you wanted, like I did for this one, but since this is a hemmed and finished edge, I didn't think it was that big of a deal, and I just kind of left it. So this is how the Velcro goes on at the top. I only have white. Probably should do this with black or a less obvious color. I am shaking the camera, but it's on there pretty securely. I do still have to finish the hand stitching at the top of this. Because I seamed the edge of the waistband down, I couldn't get my sewing machine across this top part without going through the top part of the leather. So I just have the bottom stitched on, so it works at least for right now. Especially considering I'm going to seam rip this off. That doesn't really matter that much. So, but here's the final project. There's the main part of the apron. And there's the tabard. This is the back. There is a little bit of pressing and shaping I want to do to get it to sit consistently in the right form, but I'll talk about that a little bit more in a nice little outro. But yeah, I think this came out really cool. I hope you guys enjoyed this process. This was super fun. I'm only ever learning more and getting better. So thanks for coming with me on whatever this journey was.
We did it! So, here we are. Let me see, can I get it? Okay, so it's just Velcro in the back, meaning sometimes I don't get, like, cover the white. Also, please excuse my Star Wars sweatpants. It's late at night. We're here. I think it looks great. Domino, what do you think? He doesn't know what to think. Domino, come here. Hi, you like it? You like it? He's a good boy. I have some thoughts as far as, I think I have to do some more pressing and stuff on it. This kicks out a lot in the back, and I'm not sure if I should have adjusted this more to the back. The original pattern was only for a 31.5-inch waist, and mine is closer to 33. So I added an inch on each side for the pleats, just to make it go a little bit more around. But I think with a little bit of pressing to get that to stop kicking out, I think I'll get it like all situated and organized. I'm super happy with it. I think it looks amazing and is a great next step towards getting this thing completed. I will absolutely be putting the link of the pattern that I used from Etsy in the description down below, along with hopefully a short summary of the changes that I made, so that that I thought worked a little bit better. I did think a few things in the pattern were confusing, but like overall, I mean, it's a very good and straightforward pattern that leads to a really cool result. So I'm super happy with it. I think this was a really fun project. Up next, I think I'm going to try to do the boot covers. I'm not entirely sure where it's supposed to sit. I almost think I made it too big, because like if I pull it tight enough, but then I'm worried about, well, so you know, like the chest plate, and then she's got a big belt going on. We will figure all of that out, but right now I have a blacksmithing apron that looks really, really close to what it's supposed to, and I'm okay with that. So with all of that said, if you made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. Give it a like, subscribe, why not? Leave a comment down below if you think this is fun, if you think Domino's cute. Why are you standing at the door? Good boy. Good boy. Leave a comment down below if you think Domino is cute, because of course he is. Tell him that he is a good boy, because he is a good boy. Thank you for getting to this point in the video. Apologies, you can now get the full energy of my rambles because I'm standing. This is new. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I had a lot of fun with this project. I hope you had fun watching. Domino says it's now playtime, so this is where I'm going to end the video. And with all of that said and done, I will see you guys in the next one. You're so special!